As we get really back into our garden season, our homesteading season, I love this time of year because we start really getting into planning. Well, when we talk about planning and we talk about doing things around our farm and being more sustainable and not having to run to town for everything that you need, it tends to open up a wide array of things that I think as a prepper that we should have on hand just for any situation. We talk about, if crap hits the fan kind of situation, survival, or if it's just simple everyday use. These are some good tools and necessities that you need to have, you need to purchase, you need to build, you need to buy. You can buy sometimes at garage sales or secondhand shops, but a lot of these things would be good to have on hand. So let's jump into a list of 10 things that I think that we don't tend to think about as a prepper's need, but something that you really do need because you can utilize it so many ways, especially if you're on your property or you're having to leave your property. These are some good things to have with you if you even had to go somewhere. Think about some of these things that you may want to grab and put into your prepper's supplies. So let's jump into this video today. It's going to be a good one and it starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the max. You can see it's a lot warmer today. It's amazing. In Mississippi, we go from 28 degrees to last video it was around 40 when I filmed, and today it's literally 80. So it's Mississippi. Welcome to the South. So it is a beautiful day, but that kind of reminds me of this video. We were outside doing a lot of work today. It's springtime here. We're getting into the full planting season of gardens, but also moving animals. So it's just a lot going on today. But it made me think about things that if we don't have these necessities when it comes to gardening or planning or prepping, it'd be good to have. If you're always having to run to town to pick up something, then you're wasting time and you're not being able to be sustainable on your own property. So let's jump into a great list today to have some things to help you in some needs around your properties. Before we get in this list, if you are new to the Max, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up or down. Let us know what you think. By you letting us know what you think and giving us a thumbs up, it does help us stay in the algorithm. So please hit the thumbs up button and let us know what you think. If you're new to the channel, go down here and push I'm new. If you've been here for a while and you like these stockpile videos, let us know too. So let's jump into number one. Number one would be extension cords. Now, you think that's a little crazy and a little absurd, but when it comes to extension cords, for instance, I'm gonna tell you what we used extension cords just this week for. We had to plug up heat lamps in our greenhouse. We had to plug up heat lamps for our little chicks. We also had to run an extension cord from a generator. So we don't realize how valuable having extension cords are. Extension cords are one of those things that you can never have too many. We have bought so many, and I'm not saying don't buy the cheap ones, but the better quality ones you purchase, the better and longer they're gonna last, and also they'll help you keep that current and electricity running to bigger supplies. For instance, with heat lamps, if we're using a cheaper style extension cord and it's one of those just ones that are just very economical, it's gonna tend to blow out your bulb quicker, or it's not gonna be able to carry the wattage that it needs, and it's gonna cause issues with the bulb. So make sure you have a good quality. I always look for commercial grade or contractor's grade extension cords. I literally have probably 5,000 foot of extension cords around our property. They're very valuable to have. Grab some extension cords, put them up in your supplies. Not only is this good for here at your home, when we bug out and when we take our trailer, when we go places, like we have to go out of town in the next few weeks, when we go out of town, we have a bag and a box full of this kind of stuff. Things that you don't tend to think you would need, but by having extension cords, not only do we carry our little solar generator and our little battery pack and our generator, by having extension cords, it allows you to be able to run those and use those even when you're not at your home. Extension cords, number one, a great buy to have. Number two, again, if you have animals and you have gardens, you know this is a must, but hoses, having some kind of garden hoses. Now, we have buried pipe over the last 10 years on our property, really spending time to build a good infrastructure, and I think that's a great plan. But before that, and even still to this day, we have about 10,000 foot of hoses too, because there's different ways and different places we have to put animals and also gardens that needs water. Now again, our goal is to always be able to utilize our natural creeks, our natural ponds, use the watering spots that we have made by putting infrastructure in the ground. But that's not always. You know the plan with us, we move a lot of our animals. We're always opening up new garden spots. So having access to garden hoses, it helps you be able to utilize around your property. You don't think of this as a prepping need, but again, it is. For instance, when we go out of town in our box, we have a hose. It's a smaller hose. But why? Why do we need a hose? Well, for instance, if you carry water like we do, you need to find a way that you can hook it up to your little spigot, and now you have a place that you can turn around and push water from a long distance. You don't realize how awesome that is. Also, say for instance, you're on the roads and you realize you don't have water, but you need to have a siphon. You can cut a piece of that hose, make a siphon to get gas, make a siphon to get water, make a siphon to pull any of that fluid out by making a makeshift straw in a prepper situation. Garden hoses are a huge key. You don't think of it as a prepper's item, but when you need one and you don't have it and you don't have access to one, you don't realize how valuable it really was. Number 3, this is a big one. I literally buy these used all the time. I buy food grade, but barrels, water barrels. Now you can pick up the 55 gallon, you can pick up the 30 gallon drums, you can pick up the 110 gallon drums, or anything in between. I even have some 20 and 25. And then of course the food grade 5 gallon buckets too. But when you are using them to plant, when you are using them to catch rainwater, catch water off downspouts, when you need to get water out of certain areas and use for plants, or maybe to use for our hydration or for hygiene, they're so valuable. For instance, with us having animals, this is a way that we catch manure. When we make manure tea with our rabbits, we practice, free fertilization, and we practice natural fertilization. So having some kind of barrel system and bucket systems to make compost, to make fertilized teas to put back into our gardens, buckets are huge. They're key. So we go from anywhere from the 25 to 30 gallon buckets and barrels to the 55 and 100 gallon barrels. Now, you can buy these new all the time. Look for food grade, look for ones that didn't carry chemical. However, if you live next to a lot of areas that have some suburban areas and urban areas, you can look on Facebook, and I promise you, you will find food grade buckets. Because what happens is a lot of these big restaurants or a lot of these big food providers, they have to buy this stuff overseas in these big barrels, like olives and pickles and all this stuff. Well, they can only use it once and then they have to get rid of it. So a lot of times you'll see people selling these buckets like they do shipping containers. I mean, just by the masses. So go purchase a lot of these. You can get them half price. They're food grade. All you gotta do is clean them out really good. You're ready to go. You can use them as a waterer for your animals. You can use them for fertilizer and for soils. You can use them for feed. You can use them for anything. You can plant in buckets. Please understand, they're so valuable to have. Buckets, barrels, pick up used ones, reuse them, recycle them. It's excellent to have. As a prepper, as a sustainable homesteader, our goal is to always have barrels and buckets to be able to utilize across the farm. Number 4 is a big one too. Have some kind of wheelbarrow or wagon. Now this is one of those situations where if you don't have a big property or you live in the city, I understand you not wanting to buy a wheelbarrow. I get it, I understand that. But those little wagons and those little pull behind carts are very good if you have some kind of tractor, some kind of four-wheeler, or some kind of little automobile, or maybe even if you have a bike and you're in town, having one of those little bicycle wagons, you don't realize how valuable those will be. What if all of a sudden you can't get gas and you're having to use your bike more? By having that little wagon, you'll be able to haul groceries, you'll be able to haul things without having to hold them right here. If you have a motorcycle, a lot of times people will buy those little motorcycle trailers. Having some kind of way to haul something around your property is good. In the cities, you go with something that hooks to a bike or something that hooks to a motorcycle. But when it comes to living in the county and rural areas, having some form of a wheelbarrow or cargo trailer or having some kind of little pull behind makeshift trailer around your property is good. Now I'm not talking about like a road grade, $2,000 trailer here. I'm talking about one of those ones that we call a utility trailer. I actually have one for my dairy cart. I put all my dairy supply on it, and that's what I wheel out every day when I'm milking. I don't use any kind of equipment to pull it. I just literally pull it by hand. So I'm not saying you have to have something to utilize to pull it. It may be a simple wheelbarrow. We have 2 wheelbarrows here, and then we also have about 3 utility carts. All those things were literally $100, $200 or less, but it allows you to be able to utilize them. They're very universal. If you notice this list, from the extension cords to the hoses to the barrels, it's a universal list that can help you be more sustainable around your property, but also to be able to use off your property if you ever need it. Wheelbarrows, utility carts is key. Very good to have. and to be able to utilize to haul all this stuff that we've talked about around your property. Number 6 is spray adhesive. Now, we've talked about duct tape, we've talked about other forms of adhesive, but we don't realize having some kind of flex seal or some kind of silicone spray to be able to close up just a little crack or crevice maybe on those buckets. We also utilize this when it comes to our containers. Say we have a dry, say for instance our buckets are starting to kind of dry crack and they've been in the sun, we'll spray some of this on there or use some silicone, and it helps just seal up any little hole that we've gotten. Also, we've used this on hoses. Anything that doesn't have a lot of pressure, if we're just pushing water from one place to the other, we've used this silicone spray or this flex spray or this adhesive spray on those kind of things. We've even used this around window seals. We've used this as like a spray foam or a spray seal underneath sinks. We've used this in our utility rooms where we're trying to keep, you know, varmints out of the areas that's not really controlled in our home. You don't tend to say, I'm gonna use this silicone spray and it's a permanent fix-all. It's something temporarily that you can use until you're able to actually truly permanently fix it. Number 7, what kind of goes along with what we were just talking about with fixing stuff, is having some PVC pipe around. We have a certain sizes based on the water pressures and the water that we have moving around our farm, also in our home. So if we have 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, or we have 3/4 inch or 1 inch, we even have some lines that are 2 inch. So we have some extra pipe and fittings to be able to fix any little necessity. And I told you a few days ago we had really cold weather. Well, we had a pipe that just busted, and it was just a small little crack. It was probably a PVC. You know, PVC is not really the best quality stuff. It's what a lot of plumbers use around here unless they start going to brass. So for instance, this little PVC fitting probably was already pretty weak, and the coolness just kind of made it have a crack. So we used the little sealant, cut the water off, and was able to get through the night, but then the next morning we were able to fix it with PVC. So having some sizes of PVC, now say for instance you can't stock, you know, tons and tons and tons. For instance, if you go to most hardware stores, you can buy sizes like 2, 4, 6, or 8 foot worth of pipe, depending on what size you're wanting. I challenge you, get some that's 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and 2 inch, and maybe get them in 4 to 8 foot pieces, and some fittings just for those. Maybe some 90s, some angles, and also some just straight fittings, some couplings, what they call them, and have some PVC cement and cleaner. Having those things accessible to be able to utilize are huge. Again, like us having the leaky pipe and all of a sudden having to fix it. Say for instance, we didn't have the flex seal. Say for instance, the crack was worse than what we thought. We needed to fix it so we could have water in the house that night. PVC pipes and having the fittings and couplings that you're needing, it's always good to have. This is something so cheap. You usually can buy those little links for dollars a foot, and you have them, put them up, have them in your stockpile. It's good to have for sustainable uses and also to be able to fix something. Say for instance, something bad goes down in town, the last thing you want to do is have to run into town and get these little makeshift things to fix. We don't realize how valuable PVC pipe would be. Number 8 is scrap wood. Now, anytime you're building something or you see someone getting rid of junk wood, that junk wood can be refurbished, recycled, and reused. We do this with telephone poles. If we see that people are getting rid of, like if utility companies are getting rid of telephone poles, you can use those as fence posts. Same way with rough cut lumber. When people are using and they have all these ends of 4 foot, 3 foot, 2 foot, what we will do is we'll see that, or we'll use certain pieces, then we'll take the other and stack it to a point where we know what we have. We have a lot of times we have to mend fence, or we have to, you know, fix a little piece of furniture that we've built in the house. It's good to have some scrap wood to be able to do that with. No wood is worth throwing away unless it's like little chunks that you can't utilize. You'd be surprised. You don't want to be a hoarder. I'm not saying that when it comes to having junk laying everywhere like the PVC pipe and the wood. But keeping that scrap wood and being able to utilize that is good. Now, for instance, I work with a bunch of guys, and those guys, sometimes they know I kind of keep a lot of that. So a lot of those conversations will come up and say, hey, I have, you know, about 5 pieces of wood I didn't use. Would you need it? I've done this with PVC pipes and even culverts, like we talked about in the last number. A gentleman had a little bit left over, and he said, I'm not going to use it. I paid for it. I really don't have a purpose for it, and it's kind of getting in my way of my shop. I was able to use that and make a little drainage ditch underneath a little part where my cows and animals were walking over. It also was a drainage for where Misty, when she was watering the back porch, you know, some of our herbs that are on the back porch, it allowed that water to get out there. Free pipe, free use, and to be able to recycle. Wood's the same way. Having wood, just like the PVC, to have just in case for any need. A lot of times you can pick up scrap wood from people who don't want to keep it and they'd rather throw it away. Be that person they want to throw it away too, and be able to stack it up, utilize it, because you never know what you may need it for around your home, around your farm. Again, good sustainable uses. Also, it helps you build hobbies. It helps teach your children. Aiden has built a lot of stuff out of our scrap wood, and I allowed him to say, you know what, have at it. It was free wood, and he's built these little, these little watch holders, these little wallet holders, these little sunglass holders, and he's had fun. He's tinkered with things to teach him to reuse and see value in something that was once scrap. Next would be bolt cutters. Bolt cutters are huge. We've had to cut, for instance, little locks around our property just that we've lost the keys to. We were able to utilize it. We were cutting barbed wire one time, having to splice it. We had bolt cutters, we could do that. Now, I'm not saying you need to have bolt cutters to be able to cut somebody's barbed wire, somebody's locks. I know, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is having some bolt cutters to be able to utilize in any way like that, if you ever need them, would be key. As a prepper, our goal is to look at every situation and say, okay, I'm building this sustainable homestead, or I've got this property in my home. I want to be where I can take care of myself, or if we're ever in a situation of crisis and chaos and I've got to get somewhere, bolt cutters may be really important. So buy you a set of bolt cutters. You will utilize them more than you think around your property, around your home, even in your home, but to have them in your stockpile. For instance, we've got to go out of town, and I think I've mentioned this before, but we carry a tool set with us. Bolt cutters are part of that. You never know what you may need bolt cutters for, especially when you're on the road. So bolt cutters are a very big part of what we do around here, utilizing on the farm. But more than that, we throw it in the toolbox, put it in the truck, or put it in the trailer, and it's ready to go with us anytime we have to go somewhere. If we're going on vacation, if we're going on a trip, if we're going on a work trip, or simply if we're just literally bugging out, having some bolt cutters would be huge. Next would almost be like the bolt cutter set. It's a lock picking set. Now, I'm going to talk about it in two different forms. Now, you've seen what they call a Slim Jim. I own a Slim Jim. That is if you lock your keys in your car. That is a pet peeve of mine. I try not to lock my keys in my car. Some vehicles allow you to sense it. However, we drive some older vehicles too, so sometimes it doesn't sense it, or we don't have a key fob. By having the Slim Jim, it allows us to be able to pop a lock in our own automobiles. Now, I would never challenge you to use this for anybody else's car. I'd never challenge you to use it to be able to get into somebody's car. That's not what I'm talking about here. But in a chaos crisis situation, having a Slim Jim with you or having access to a Slim Jim is very, very good. Now, say for instance, I know in our area, the police and sheriff departments, they don't do lock pops anymore, meaning, if you lock your keys in your car, you have to hire somebody to actually come do that now because they don't want the liability. So if you want a side hustle and you want to make some money, a Slim Jim on Amazon's like 30 or 40 bucks. Have a Slim Jim and to be able to pop locks and help people out. I've helped guys who work with me, they'll do the same thing and they're embarrassed to say, I lock my keys in my car, but they'll call me and say, hey, you got your Slim Jim handy? And so they'll come get my Slim Jim and be able to pop their locks open and be able to get back in their car. Now, the other set of lock picking mechanisms that I'm talking about is a true door. Now, this takes skill, but you can buy these little lock picking sets on Amazon again. Not only if you lock your keys in your home, that's a good thing too. And if you don't have your keys with you, okay. But to have a lock picking set, again, for safety, for security, and for availability to get somewhere if you ever had to go into hiding. These last few items, such as the bolt cutters, such as the Slim Jim, all of these things are good to have, because if you ever think about it, you can't bug in, you got to bug out. Some of these things may come in handy more than you would think. I know this wasn't a typical list that you would see from a true prepper. It almost reminds you of, hey, this is a good tool list to have if you're a gardener or you're a farmer or you're having to bug out or you're having to stay home or you're trying to take care of your home. That's just it. A lot of times we emphasize things like water, we emphasize things like food, we emphasize things like our firearms or like self-defense tools. That's all great, and we've done tons of videos on that. But sometimes we don't think about the little things that we need, or how valuable an extension cord is, how valuable, Flex Seal or silicone spray would be. We don't realize that until we don't have it. So pick up these things. A lot of these things you can purchase for economic. A lot of these things are very, very economic. So start picking those up incrementally. Make a little box just for these necessities. Be able to throw them in there, be able to utilize and throw in your vehicle if you ever had to go, because you don't realize how valuable some of these things will be. But also, if you need to fix something around the house, you have some PVC, you have a certain place to put that. If you have a certain place to put the wood, you'll be able to recycle, be more sustainable, save some money, and do some things on your own. The more we learn to do on our own, the better we become, the more sustainable we are. It gives us a feeling of approval and happiness that we can do some things on our own. So I hope this list helps. Let me know if you think about any of these things or have thought about any of these things. Let us know what you think you would add to this list as kind of those uncommon tools or uncommon things that people don't talk about. So again, if you're new to the Max, go on here, press subscribe, ring the bell. Again, that helps us out tremendously. As we end, again, thank you so much for always watching our videos and subscribing and being a part of our videos. It means the world to us when we hear from you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.